Jupiter Broadcasting presents this program in stereo sound. This episode brought to you by GoDaddy.com. This week on the Linux Action Show, we dissect the Microsoft and Amazon deal, give you the full story on the new Linux Terminal Server project release, and why it is so fancy. Then we use math to get you the important trends on the Linux desktop. Plus, we review Linux Mint 8. All this week on the Linux Action Show. And welcome everybody to the Linux Action Show, Season 11, Episode 2. My name is Brian. With me is Chris.
Hey, Brian. This player piano runs Linux. Check this out. Yamaha has a piano that comes with an embedded Linux device that will automatically digitally play the piano. And this is one classy looking piano, dude. I have to say.
Dude, that is a nice piano.
I know. And you can see on here, there's a spot where they have the little Linux touchscring device.
Dude.
And they've got multiple devices on this thing, plus an entire computer down in the corner where they can load stuff up.
Dude, they got several devices on that.
It is a totally wired piano.
That is the nerdiest,
and all electronics
fanciest,
run
John Lennoniest, whatever piano ever.
Isn't that neat?
That's awesome.
It's kind of, the specs are a little modest. It has a 333 megahertz AMD
Oh,
Geode
that's
processor.
ridiculous. 333 megahertz. You can't even play piano at
It has
333 megahertz.
it has the ability.
Am I right, Jeremy, behind the camera?
Jeremy totally agrees
says
with you.
yes. 333 megahertz, too slow for a grand piano.
250 megabytes of RAM, an 80 gigabyte hard drive.
Wait, did you say 250?
Yeah.
That's not even like a normal number.
Well, I bet you they have some. I bet it's a shared memory setup.
How can you have
80 gig
250
drive,
megabytes of RAM?
Ethernet,
It's
Wi-Fi,
impossible.
dual USB. Oh, and good news, serial port. It has a serial port, audio in and out, and also speakers with PCI expansion interfaces. You can record your piano playbacks and all that kind of. You can record and reconstruct. It's all really cool. It runs on Linux. Runs on an old Linux 2.4.2 kernel.
I love
Monte
that.
Vista
That's
Linux
great.
3.1.
I don't think Linux multitasked back then.
It's got, check this out. It's got Samba on it, so you can do a share of your piano recordings.
What?
It's got Postgres for databases. It has some software that comes with it.
This is great and
UI.
everything, but I need to know GNOME or KDE.
I'm guessing it's GNOME. I'm going with that.
You're just going with GNOME?
Yeah, it feels right.
You know what? I don't think piano players like KDE.
It's got its
That's
video.
what I've
Its
heard.
sound card is a very high-end Yamaha sound card. No total availability price yet. It's going to be an upgrade for their Mark IV or greater pianos. And
It's an upgrade? So is it like a set of devices they plug into the piano?
I think so. I think the pianos already are kind of wired for it a little bit, or have
man.
some future conduit is what they call it.
That's pretty rad.
The upgrade, if you already have all the equipment,
That's pretty rad.
the only upgrade only costs you $90, but I'm not sure what all the equipment will cost you.
Probably like $1 billion.
So interesting enough, one of the things we're going to start doing at the top of the show is I switched to an Android phone recently.
You sure did.
And I thought we'd do some Android picks of some of the best Android devices I have. I also started a subform.
Android applications, you mean?
Yeah. I also started a subform over at JupiterColony.com in the Linux Action Show area for Android.
No,
and I
you
started
didn't.
a thread in there about
You
best
did not.
Android apps. I did.
For realsies?
So I'll get that
man.
going. But before we do that, I wanted to take care of a little business. So we don't too often ask for donations. Every now and then we have in the past. But one of the things that's coming up for us is we have a new camera purchase that we need to make. We have a Canon HV20 right now.
Yep.
And our HV20 is a good camera, but it has some technical limitations. One of them is
It's all interlaced. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's got a couple other things, like it doesn't let us lock exposure quite right and things like that. The HV40,
It doesn't make Brian look as awesome as he could, is what we're trying to say, ladies and gentlemen.
the HV40 is kind of the logical successor to our current camera, and they're taking it off the market in June.
Yep.
And it's one of the last FireWire cameras, and that's how we capture it with FireWire and HDMI. So we've got to make this purchase pretty soon because we figure in June there's going to be a gold rush for this camera because it's kind of a popular camera. So what we're asking is if you've got a little spare cash, and now that we're going to try to up the production levels of the show, so we're hoping to maybe bring in additional sponsorships or something to kind of cover these costs. But in the meantime, we'd like to be able to buy this camera before there is a kind of a gold rush because it's being discontinued in June.
Correct.
If you have an opportunity, if you could head over to JupiterBroadcasting.com, over on the right-hand side of our site, there is the donation links. And if you could throw us a couple of bucks, if you've got it to spare and you
If you've
enjoy the
got it,
content,
you know what I'm
Happy
saying?
Linux Action Shows back weekly, things like that.
Yeah.
Throw it in there because we're going to try to save up enough money to buy the replacement camera for the studio. Plus,
Or-
then we'll go 2-cam.
Or, you know, if you just work at Canon and you're like, you know what? I've got 5 of these sitting around in boxes and I'll just send them one. That
Right.
works too.
That would be fine.
Yeah.
But there's probably not a very good.
Also, we
likelihood
will
of
say the word Canon 3 times if you do that on the show.
that. All right.
Little bit of bribery right there.
So I just want to put that out there before we mention the Droid application for today, the Android app, because I would really appreciate if anybody that can help us out like that, because we want to get that camera soon.
Would
I'm
be
excited,
nice.
and I think what we'll do is we'll take our current camera and we'll like mount it on the side of the table, so we'll have like a B cam,
Yeah.
a gadget cam, but we'll
Be
also
great to have a
have
good gadget
we'll have
cam.
we'll have a dedicated on location camera. So like we're thinking about doing some Beer is Tasty on location, and now
That'd
we
be
can
great.
we don't have to disassemble the whole studio now
Yeah.
to go on location if we get a second camera.
Fancy.
So that'll be cool. All right. So my Google or my Android app pick
yes.
for this episode
Yes.
it's kind of a selfish one, but you've got to check it out. It just got a lot better.
It's a selfish one.
And it's Google Listen. And the reason why it's selfish is because, well, you could download our shows on your Android with Google Listen. So we have applications out there for the iPhone platform where you can download our shows over your 3G connection without having to be connected. And it's dedicated apps for Linux Action Show and Beer is Tasty and Stoked.
all that good stuff.
Google Android doesn't have the limitation of not allowing you to download over 3G. So you just need an RSS download.
That is so much nicer.
Yeah. And so Google Listen just recently added the ability to sync a Google Listen subscription list with Google Reader. So now you can manage the subscriptions on your phone inside Google Reader. And this is a really nice, it's pretty simple, but it's a really nice little app. And it's pretty clean on your Android phone. What I'm showing you the video version right now, it just looks like what's on screen.
Yeah, it looks great.
And you can manage subscriptions on the phone, or you can manage them in Google Reader. And then it'll Google Reader or Google Listen, when you fire it up, can automatically go check these RSS feeds and download the shows right there on your phone. Store it like on your SD card and play it back. It's a very, very good podcasting client for the Android phone. So if you're an Android user and you want to get our stuff on the go, that's a great way to do it. Another application, which is Pay, but it's a great podcasting client, but you have to be careful because this thing can get away, because this thing will auto go out on its own and download, and you can set up rules and stuff like that.
It'll auto-download podcasts?
It'll auto-download podcasts in the background.
Like stuff you did not subscribe to?
No, stuff you subscribe to, but like say I subscribe to Beer is Tasty, right? And then and then if I'm like making a phone call and it decides it needs to make a connection and download Beer is Tasty, that's bad. So you got to set some rules. But it is way more powerful than Listen, and this is called Dog Catcher. DOGGCHCATCHER.
It's got the second G. That's how you know it's good, ladies and gentlemen.
It'll let you do
you
things
got
like,
the D-O-double-G catch over there.
like one of the things Listen does is Listen makes you download almost all of the show
That's my
first.
best rapper voice, by the way.
Good job,
I
buddy.
don't have a better one, but I'm working on it. Jeremy gave me the thumbs down, but I think it's pretty PIMP over here.
So this program will let you download just a little bit and play it, so you can more like stream it.
That was a totally loud laugh, by the way.
Thank you.
No, it's cool. No, it looks cool.
That's all I got.
It looks cool.
That's all I got for you. So it's called Dog Catcher, and it's really good, but it is it's like $3. So it's not that much.
You know what I
Listen
like
gets the
about all
job
this? These are two different podcasting like aggregator downloader apps. You're not even allowed to have those on the iPhone.
I know.
Like you're not even allowed to, like, if you want to make one and you're just like, I'm going to give it away for free, or I'm going to charge for it and donate my money to Apple personally just because I love them. You can't do that. It's illegal on the Apple.
So that's my first two, and I just thought I'd do the podcast ones right out since
that's awesome, man.
Podcast. But
I love it.
The next picks are going to be pretty cool. Before we move on, though, should we say holla to our boys over at GoDaddy.com? GoDaddy.com.
I do believe we should, because this episode of the Linux Action Show is sponsored by GoDaddy.com, the world's largest web host and domain name registrar.
Yeah,
if you're ready to make an impact online, GoDaddy.com has got you covered. Domain names as low as $1.99.
Yeah,
plus world-class hosting, unlimited disk space, and bandwidth. Unlimited bandwidth. Wrap your noodle around that. That's
you guys figure it
crazy. Forgot what I was reading. Do-yourself website builders, dedicated servers, SSL certs, and so much more. Plus, as a Linux Action Show viewer or listener, or however you're getting this, maybe it's a transcript written by like a guy in the third world. That happens.
Yeah.
That happens.
I know it, dude.
I'm going to go on record. That probably happens from the Oprah Winfrey Show. Enter promo code Linux. That's LINUX, and take an additional 10% off your entire freaking order. Some restrictions may apply. See site for details. Your PC internet now.
At GoDaddy.com.
That's right, sir. Plus, you can also use Linux 20. We've talked about that in the past. It's Linux spelled out 20.
Linux all uppercase
off
gets you
your hosting. So here's the thing.
Linux 20. Yeah, Linux
It's
20 gives you 20% off your hosting.
Linux 20 is the pimp one. I mean,
Yep.
Linux is great because it's 10% off your order. That's awesome, blah, blah, blah. But Linux 20, if you're getting like a hosting package set up, and even if it's a pretty cheap hosting package, it's 20% off. That's great.
That's a good deal.
It's like the cheapest hosting you can find like anywhere.
All right.
I think I said
like it.
pined.
Should we move on to the
instead
news
of
segment now,
find.
Brian?
I think I just replaced an F with a P. in a
Thank you to
word.
GoDaddy.
That shouldn't be done.
Long-term sponsors of the show. We appreciate that.
Muchos gracias.
All right, everyone. Well, let's do the news.
Mi amigo. What's new in the news this week?
All right, Brian. Our top story on the news docket
That was good.
for this week.
It wasn't good like last episode.
I can't do it at 11 every time. That way, then it's not at 11. Then it just becomes the normal.
Dude, that's why you kick it up to 12.
Every episode, I got to bring it up.
Well, you got to kick it up 1 point. I mean, come on, what's one notch?
I
then
just
20 episodes from now, you'll be like, I'm kicking it up to 23.
I just envision myself at some point having to come out here with like a loud blowhorn speaker thing and be like, all right, Brian.
You know what you should do? I'd be like, what's new in the news this week? And you just pull out like one of those bullhorns, those. All right, go for it.
All right.
Do whatever you're going to do with your words.
I'm
going to sit here and drink this delicious Coca-Cola sponsoring the whatever Olympics with sports.
With sports. I thought you like sports now.
Dude, no, I don't like sports now. I like football. Chris is giving me a hard time, ladies and gentlemen, because I got into football recently. I've been making fun of football
for 31 years
and footballers
for his entire life.
I think pretty much I came out of the womb and I just started pointing at people and calling them jocks and laughing. I mean, that's pretty much my entire thing.
And then one day,
well, no,
because
we have
one viewer of the show sends him to a football game with
Craig,
sweet seats.
Craig sent us over a great dude, got me these great seats. He has these awesome
Seahawks
season tickets.
Seahawks
tickets down here. And went this last one. It was like literally like one seat back from the field. The cheerleaders and like the footballinators
off the cheerleaders.
were like 12 inches from my face, and I had the greatest time. Now I love football. I don't know what happened. Ladies and gentlemen, that's American football. That's not
flip flopper
ball kicky ball. I think that's what it's called.
Soccer, I believe.
I don't know.
I think you're getting soccer confused again.
I do not know.
They don't play it in the U.S., so we're not sure.
Here's the thing I need to be clear with. I still don't actually know the rules to football all that well, but entertained. That's all I'm saying. I'm entertained because they go out there and they turn it up to 23 every time.
Right.
Whereas Chris settles for turning it up to 11.
They generally are doing it around 11, unfortunately.
Is that
they
what
just
it
get
is?
paid for it doing it at 23.
Well, when I saw it, it was
all right.
Pretty high number.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so the top story on the news docket
about
for this
anyway?
Week. Amazon and Microsoft sign a patent sharing deal. Now, did you hear about this?
I've heard a lot about this.
This came out, and then it took a couple of days to really catch on online.
Yeah.
I actually thought maybe we'd be one of the people talking about this, but now as the week has gone on, it's gotten more and more coverage.
It's gotten a lot of attention.
So the specifics of this deal are not exactly disclosed, not even the dollar amount, but what we do know is
it's a generalized patent agreement.
Amazon has paid Microsoft a considerable sum, but we don't know how much. And it's generally in regards to patents around the Kindle. We've been able to confirm that much. And
let's be clear. They've paid a sum. We don't know what that sum is.
Well, something in here says they have reason to believe it's a considerable sum.
They have reason
like in the
to believe.
Millions.
You know what? I have reason to believe that they also did this deal in space and signed it in their own blood. But I have reason to believe that.
I'm just saying.
It was because I had a dream last night. I had a few too many beers before I went to bed, but that's still reason to believe.
So
it's a sum. We don't know how much. It could be $50.
But
it's
these guys, they're supposed to know what's supposed to.
Who's these guys?
Who's these? It was TechCrunch and Mashable. Both Mashable's a good.
TechCrunch don't know garbage.
Mashable's a good source though. Mashable's good. I don't know.
All right, Mashable's all right.
But here's what I do know is it's supposed to basically come around. So they're also here's basically the way I look at it is. Yeah. They paid Microsoft a lot of money. We don't know. We don't know.
Some amount.
They also agreed to share patent details like regarding S3 technology and things like that. And they got protection for patents that apply to the Kindle.
Yes.
Kindle is Linux-based.
Yes.
So that's interesting. And Microsoft says that they have done these types of deals with undisclosed amounts with 600 other agreements.
So just to be clear, there is... I mean, if you're just going to use your noodle for a second and think, what could this possibly be about?
I mean, there's a lot of deals being made.
The first thing that jumps to mind, Kindle uses fat.
That's the first thing that jumps to my mind. TomTom used fat.
TomTom used fat. That's why TomTom and Microsoft were hashing that all out. That's why. That was the reason.
I don't understand why
I
all
would
of these
think it would
guys
be the
don't
same
just stop
thing.
using FAT instantly.
Because they want to make it super easy to mount drives and devices on Windows computers, I guess.
Yeah, okay.
That's the only thing I can think of.
But millions? Would you pay millions for that?
Honestly, yeah. I mean, Windows is like, what, 95 billion
Yeah,
percentage
okay.
points
All right,
of
I
all
see it.
computers.
I see what you're saying.
I mean, it's, I mean,
What the part
I'd
that
like it if they didn't, but come on. I mean, I get it.
the part that gets my conspiracy light flashing is the where they say they've done it with 600 other agreements/companies, and at that
Yeah,
point I start
probably.
looking at this going, they must have something concrete. Microsoft must have something, because for Amazon to dump, and TomTom and a bunch of other companies to dump out a bunch of money and give Microsoft access to their patent portfolio for certain technologies, Microsoft must be coming with something superior to the table. There must be something they're bringing that's scaring all of these people.
I don't know if it's necessarily scaring, but convincing them that it's the prudent business move.
It's cheaper in the long run. If
It's
just
cheaper in the long run. I mean, like, look at it this way: if you're Amazon and you're looking across the street at Microsoft, because come on, they're just like right next to each other practically. I mean, different cities, but they're right there. And Microsoft comes to you and be like, hey, you're using FAT or whatever else that you're using, and you're running it on Linux, so you're using a non-Microsoft implementation of FAT. And they're coming to you and say, you know what? I'm not saying we'll sue you out of existence. I'm just saying
it could happen.
that's ours, and I'm Microsoft.
We're just saying.
Honestly, if I was Amazon, and I'd be like, well, yeah, I have a cash cow here. I could pay you 5% of what I make off this cash cow, or I could potentially go out of business fighting you. I don't know which is going to happen. I'm just going to settle up for 5%.
But do you notice how a lot of new devices are coming out? The hipper, trendier devices like the Zune and the iPhone and the iPod Touch, they no longer mount as drive.
They want to have more control over the experience.
But I'm wondering if they're no longer mounting as drives because maybe they're not using FAT on the back end or something. I don't know. It's all really strange. It seems like if Microsoft, it almost seems like.
You know what? Actually, I'm curious
about. I hate the
idea
of Windows. Like, I hate the idea of like 5-10 years down the road, maybe 15 years down the road, Windows desktop dries up, and now this is Microsoft's alternative source of revenue.
It's their thing. It's FAT.
They go the route of SCO.
Devices have FAT.
I don't want them to go the route of SCO where they just sue to stay in business.
Man,
I'm sure that's not likely, but
no, that's not likely. I mean, Microsoft's gonna be making $1 billion forever. I mean, there's just not what we can do about that at this point.
It just seems scary.
I think they make more in interest off of their savings account than like most nations do.
But they're just going in. These companies are rolling over.
It does seem that way, doesn't it?
And I want to know what they. Why won't they come out and say what they've got? That way, people stop using it because they want to go threaten them with lawsuits. So they're not warning us what is patented. You know what? Because then they can't go around threatening people.
What I'm kind of curious about, like,
that's evil. This is evil Microsoft.
Do you know this is kind of the evil Microsoft stuff that I don't care for? Do you know? Do you know with like Arcos, right? Arcos makes some of those great devices. Most of the stuff they make is all Linux based. They make one Windows powered tablet now, but the rest of it is all Linux based devices and tablets,
more
and
Android
and all sorts of stuff.
Yep.
Do you know what file system a lot of those use? Because almost every Arcos device mounts as a like removable storage device.
I don't.
I'd be curious, and I'd be curious if they're using FAT on any of them, if they've worked anything out with Microsoft.
The other problem that is it's going to eventually have to force the hand of replacement of FAT is 4 gig file size limit.
Yeah,
I mean the video. If you want to load a video on the go, eventually they're going to start getting over 4K.
Seriously, honestly, we should just be standardizing on all these devices on ext3. That should just be it, because ext3 is stable, is solid, is open source, decently licensed. You can just throw it on friggin' anything. And
I think there's probably a lot of handset manufacturers that maybe want to avoid it because of GPL.
But see, that's the thing.
But they're using Linux code a lot of them.
If you're using the Linux kernel, I mean, and you're throwing ext3 on it, you can have proprietary applications on it that you don't have to release the source code for. If you make changes to ext3, you have to make that available. That's the only real thing.
You could do like what the iPad's going to do, where you have your primary internal storage is HFS, and then there's a partition that when you plug it into the machine, it's going to mount on the desktop as a small like 4 gig FAT32 partition.
Yeah, but that's so lame.
I know.
It's so lame doing that. It's cooler just to have like
thing.
just the whole shebang.
Yeah,
and
I like
have
to
it
see
all
my whole file
ext3
system.
and just boom, or ext2. Hell, that'll work just fine.
Or UFS or whatever.
Whatever. There's so many great file systems.
I agree.
ZFS.
So this Amazon deal, deal here with
is a little weird, isn't it?
It's a little scary. It makes me wonder what Microsoft's rolling, and it harkens back to old scary Microsoft.
Now,
and I don't like
you're
that.
right though. When it lists things like 600 other companies, it kind of makes you be like, well, why are we only hearing about it when it's like Amazon? You know what I mean? Who are these other 600 companies? mean, maybe it's just these little tiny mom and pop shops where they just
I don't think
pay
so.
almost nothing to Microsoft, and Microsoft's being cool. If so, Microsoft should come out and tell us that.
I don't think
then
that's
we
what
could
it is, though,
feel
dude.
happier about it at least.
I think it's bigger companies. I mean, I think it's TomToms, and I think it's all those kind of companies. I don't know. It's scary crap to me because if they don't tell you what rules you're breaking, they just tell you after you've broken them. There's no fair way to be able
That's
to.
not cool.
There's no way to be able to prevent yourself from getting in trouble.
Yeah, no, I'm not down with that.
And then at that point, like we're as far down the line with the Kindles Amazon is, and they're really at a critical point right now. They can't just scrap the something as fundamental as the file system, so they're forced into doing it.
No, they can't.
Whereas if Microsoft would have just come to them, or if Microsoft would just publicly say, these are the patents that we believe people using Linux technology infringe upon, then Amazon could sit down with that list and go, okay, we're going to build ourselves an ebook reader. We want to use Linux.
That would
Let's
be
look
great.
at this list.
That would be great. Literally, if they should just put up why Microsoft doesn't like Linux.com and just give us a chart that just is everything they think we infringe upon and how much of it they think we infringe upon it. Because they have that information. They've got a spreadsheet internally. Just go in Excel, file, export to web page or whatever the F Excel has, and just boom, publish it somewhere. It doesn't have to be pretty. Just let us know.
Maybe these device manufacturers need to include a little installer for their device with Windows that comes on a CD that when you install it, loads like an ext3 driver.
Oh, that's a great idea, actually.
Just avoid the
you know
problem.
what? Yeah, but yeah, that'd be awesome. That'd be awesome. That would be great.
Yeah.
That would solve a lot of issues.
All right, Brian, the next story on the news docket for this week. After 2 years of fantastic development, the Linux Terminal Server Project version 5.2 is out. Now, I'm talking about this in the news docket because Linux Terminal Server Project is a pet favorite of mine. For those of you who do not know, I've got a handy little diagram in the video version. It essentially allows you to take one Linux server and attach a bunch of really dumb terminals to it.
Say what?
What Linux Terminal Server Project does cooler than Windows Terminal Server is the dumb terminals utilize their local memory and display buffer and things like that. So if you load OpenOffice in Linux Terminal Server environment, you actually load a stub of the program in the local memory.
Yeah.
So if you lose connection to the terminal server for a few seconds, you don't lose
You're
your
not
whole
toasted.
session.
Yeah.
The application that's in memory will still run. In a school district network,
That's
where
great.
sometimes things are a little rocky.
Yeah.
That was so nice that we went when I worked at the school district, we went with Linux terminal servers because we were doing these entire desktops out over a WAN that used wireless links, and sometimes they go down.
That's
so you wouldn't lose the whole lab if it went down. And then also you just got a ton of machine for the price. So the story is coming out of Slashdot, and it says after almost 2 years and 994 different commits made by only 14 contributors, the core LTSP team, they're proud to announce that Linux Terminal Server Project is on 5.2 as of February 17th. And there's a couple of new things that are really nice. There's a new, they call it the LDM. It's the Linux Terminal Server Project Display Manager.
Nice.
Lets you configure a lot of what the end clients are going to be able to see. Because if the end client that you're having, the way it works is you have a dumb machine, say a cheap $300 workstation, and it can do a network boot, and you don't even have to have a local drive in it. It boots and gets a DHCP address and boots off of a server. Your terminal server has a little TFTP server, and you download the image and load it into memory. And if you have local video cards that have 3D acceleration, you can actually load a local 3D driver. So your terminal server client can have 3D playback capabilities.
I love that idea.
Which is very cool. And then there's also a few other really nice things, including, of course, they've based it on a newer version of Ubuntu, and they've included a lot of the new applications. And now they're putting all of the new upstream code, all of the work they're doing is going to be integrated into a Launchpad project where they're going to kind of organize there, and they're all kind of...
They're putting it in Launchpad?
Well, they're based on Ubuntu now.
Oh.
So when you have a project based on Ubuntu and you put it in Launchpad, there's a lot of interconnections.
It's great,
you
yeah.
can do.
It's handy.
Yeah. So it works really well for them, and Launchpad. I think that Launchpad ended up going open source now too.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. So
no, Launchpad's tight.
Linux Terminal Server Project. There was a time where I was super tempted to get one nice Linux server, because if you get local 3D acceleration, you get competence,
that's great. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So then I was thinking for myself and the wife and a couple other extra machines, and even out in the studio, just doing dumb systems.
And
$300 boxes.
You could have these little tiny boxes that are whisper quiet, super cheap.
Solves the problem of having different stuff on different machines, because they're all just clients of one machine. So all my stuff's on that one machine. So one machine, I do mirror drives, dual power, all that kind of stuff. That machine's a rock. And then the throwaway machines just connect to it.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's
and then,
awesome.
And it works over Wi-Fi. It works over wired connection. It's great.
Yep. Plus, you can get small, tiny handheld devices that run the same thing.
Totally.
Oh, that'd be rad.
Yeah, I actually had done a little idea of a small portable netbook that was a netboot device,
Yep.
and taking like a treadmill and putting it on the treadmill and just like doing a little workout session that would connect in. I'd have all my videos on one box, and I could go back to my desktop and watch the same stuff.
Yep.
And it was really cool. I don't know. I never really got around to it, but
It'd be rad.
It would be rad.
That'd
There's
be
a few
super
projects
rad.
out there that make Linux kernel server project even easier. Just do some Google searches on that. It's pretty cool stuff. And if you get something like that going, or you already have something going,
we
like
want to
that,
know about it.
yeah, JupyterColony.com. Let us know in the Linux Action Show area. All right, Brian. Well, I think that wraps up the news document.
It does.
That's all
I thought
the
we
news.
had another one.
No, I don't
That
think
was
so.
it?
I think we got a lot of show to get to. So
We do have a lot to talk about.
All right,
Chris.
that's all the news, Brian.
I'm gonna let
Brian,
you end the news
Brian,
segment now, Chris.
That's all, Brian.
Yes. Okay. Wait a minute, Chris. Go.
That's all the news for this week. All right, coming up in the main segment for the show, we've got two different things. We're doing a review of Linux Mint.
Yes,
and
sir.
we're going to talk about a recent blog post that Brian made called The Involuntary Unification of Linux. See, the involuntary is in parentheses. And
sure is.
Brian's kind of looked at the data and has some interesting points to make. So I want to talk about that first, and then we'll talk about Linux Mint. So
yeah, we'll dive into that.
Over on the blog here at lunduke.com, you can find this post. And you really, dude, there's some posts that are kind of quick posts, and then there's posts.
Dude, this post took some time.
This is like a Sunday meal that you spend all days cooking.
Dude, it was kind of intensive. So
this is the longest freaking post ever.
It's not that it's the longest. I've done longer posts.
Yeah.
It's just that this post has charts in them. Like, and if you like, can you bring up one of those charts here so the video people can just see it at home? For those of you listening to the audio version, my apologies. Head on over to lunduke.com.
Yep.
And you can just read the post, and you can see all the charts we're talking about here. So you know, on the Linux side of things, we're always hearing about, you know, Fedora comes out and says, "Oh my gosh, we have like a bajillion users now," or like Canonical comes out and Canonical never says much of anything about Ubuntu,
right?
But you know, different distros make different claims, and everyone's like, "Oh, you know, which distro is king? Where are we going? Oh, you know, what's happening?
What's the current standard of the Linux desktop?
Exactly.
Where is it at?"
And it's almost impossible to figure that stuff out.
Yeah.
Like, there's no centralized. Here's how much real market share we have. Like, there's like network statistics that you can get. You can get good net stats of web browser usage. But honestly, most of the distros I've found don't actually report themselves properly.
Some of them don't, and some of them change it.
Yes, between releases, they'll change it.
I've seen like a Firefox update that changed the agent string.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's really difficult to get
there's so many different browsers
Plus,
people
getting
use.
Getting off the web can be kind of troublesome. So you kind of have to get from reliable sources.
Right. And so then you can check, there's like the Google Analytics, right? So you can check the Google search stats over the years of what people are searching for. But all that really means is people are searching for whatever's in the news, not what they're interested in downloading or have downloaded.
You know, the Google search would give you like the mind share.
It gives you
what
trending
are people wanting to know about? What are people? What's the current topic?
Here's the thing I have with that is if you were somehow able to go to Google's stats thing and just look at what Linux users are searching for, which you can't do, but let's say you could. Linux users are still going to Google for Windows and Microsoft a lot.
True.
That doesn't mean they're running it.
Right.
That just means they're interested in the stories because it's news.
I see what you're saying.
You know, and so
I could be an Ubuntu. I could be a hardcore Ubuntu user, but I'm still looking up about the OS 10 or Windows.
Good example of it is I was running an Ubuntu 9.10 desktop while I was doing most of this stuff, and I was looking in Google Stats for Fedora and OpenSUSE stat trends.
Right.
Those had nothing to do with what I was
actually
running.
In fact, you're on Ubuntu.
Right. Yeah. So what I decided to standardize on just for the sake of this, because it lets us get all the numbers from one source, is DistroWatch. DistroWatch ranks all the distros in terms of page hits. That means that it's only people interested in like the releases for the given distros. Now, those are going to be skewed. Those numbers are going to be off. Over time, those numbers will change because DistroWatch gets more or less popular, or more or less users of a particular distro will go to DistroWatch. But it does give us at least a baseline.
It gives you a baseline. It's one of your better options, really, if you look at everything.
I mean, because we can't. If we go to Fedora every now and then releases a stat. They'll say we've had 3 million people that are updating from our repository.
They're one of the few distributions that actually releases some numbers.
And that's really, really great. Unfortunately, we don't have those numbers for all the distros, and we don't know exactly how all the distros that do provide those numbers are collecting those numbers, so it's hard to compare them. So we have to have one source that charts all the numbers in the same way.
Yeah.
So go ahead and bring up the first little graph.
And I really like here too what you did with the kind of historical angle.
Yeah, so we're looking back 2003 to present. Now, we're listing 2010, but really that's just January, right? We're just looking at for January of 2010, just to kind of see where we're at so far.
Right.
Honestly, the 2010 numbers, they're kind of bogus because that's going to change over the next 6 months as new distros have releases. So I picked, like, theoretically the top distros, either the ones that get the most news or that were the highest rated on DistroWatch.
Okay.
And so there's there's everything from Puppy to Gentoo to PC Linux OS and Mepis and Knoppix and Fedora.
Yep.
Everything's on there. And it's a mess. These are
all
just
over
the
the
raw numbers. These are the raw numbers.
These are the
from
raw
DistroWatch
data numbers.
And it is just a chaotic
what's
mess.
jumping out at me is which no surprise here, Ubuntu had a skyrocketing success between 2004 and 2005. I mean,
huge.
The most dramatic increase.
Yeah.
There's this blue line on this chart that shoots way up.
Now
That's
Ubuntu came out basically in the middle of 2004.
Yep.
Didn't really make that big of a splash.
Oh. By 2005 it was the number one distro.
Well, see, that's the thing.
It
was
took
when
over
2005
in 1 year.
Ubuntu went from not existing to by far the number one. Now the problem is though, this doesn't take into consideration the fact that DistroWatch's own traffic is changing over time. So like you see there's spikes all over the place.
Yeah, like OpenSUSE has a jump all the way up almost up to Ubuntu levels in
it
2007.
does all sorts of stuff. So what I did is I'm like, what we really want to know, we don't want to know the raw hits per distro page. That's not that interesting. So go over to the next one.
All righty.
The next chart I did is I took those numbers, added them all together, and created a percentage. So here is all those same distros as a percentage of the total Linux market share.
All right. So nothing gets above 20.
Much more interesting.
24, 23%.
No, that's the really crazy part. If you look at it, in this particular way of looking at it, Ubuntu is still king. I mean, Ubuntu still is hovering between 15 and 20% most of the time.
Interesting that it's not total domination.
It's not total domination though.
That's
so
interesting.
this one caught me off guard. But if you look back, look all the way back at 2003 there.
2003. See, we've got.
Who was tops in 2003?
What's this yellow one here?
Oh, that yellow one? I believe that is
Fedora. Oh.
Fedora was way down. Well, Fedora didn't really.
Well, look, Fedora got pretty high in 2004.
Well, that's that jumped over. Look at it though, Mandriva.
Yeah,
and
I was gonna say Mandriva just has a stellar decline.
The thing is, percentage-wise,
in 2003, Mandriva was
higher than Ubuntu has ever been in terms of pure Ubuntu. Now, I've broken out Ubuntu and Kubuntu as two separate things.
Yeah, in the video version or on Brian's site, you'll see two lines, a blue and a dark blue. The light blue is Mandriva. Yeah, that's interesting.
And look at right when Ubuntu takes off, boom, Mandriva just takes a tail dive, and they've never come back above.
So how are you
6 or
getting
7%.
unification out of this?
Well, now this is what's interesting. So if you look at the list of those distros, there's Puppy, there's Mandriva and Debian and Fedora, everything.
Yeah, all the big ones.
That's all great.
Gentoo,
Mepis
PC,
is in
Linux.
there, and Mepis is a great distro.
Cool.
All sorts of great stuff. And Mint. Look at Mint. Mint is just rocking out hardcore.
Yeah.
Mint came from nowhere in 2006 all the way up to boom, basically the number 2 spot right now. Well, no,
that's interesting.
That kind of gives us this big mess, right? It looks like a mess. It's interesting to look at these intense changes in the marketplace, but it doesn't show unification. Go to the next chart.
Next chart.
What if we consolidate a bit?
Oops.
All these distros are based on each other for the most part, right?
Sure. So you consolidate all the ones that are Ubuntu based or Debian based, all the ones that are Red Hat based.
And I included OpenSUSE here because there's not a lot in the way of OpenSUSE based distros outside of SLED or SLES. But I wanted to include it here because I found what's happening in the SUSE world extremely interesting. So now if you look at this, right there, right around 2005, boom, Ubuntu comes out of nowhere and almost takes over the number 1 spot away from Fedora in terms of browsers based on it. And then it quickly, by 2007, usurped it big time.
Yep.
And it's just continued to kind of go up since then.
Yep.
And Fedora had a little bit of a spike in 2008, and then it's just going right back down. And the interesting thing is, Debian went up in 2005. Like total Debian-based distros increased greatly to
You think,
over
like, everybody was-
45%.
You think everybody was like, man, Ubuntu's cool. It's based on Debian. Because remember, 2005 is when Ubuntu got popular. So like, oh, Ubuntu's cool. Well, we could do a distro based on Debian.
Yes. But no. Look at those numbers. Ubuntu is based on Debian. Now, though Debian went up because Ubuntu went up, and Ubuntu's based on Debian.
It brought Debian's
It brought
numbers
Debian up.
right.
And then if you look at over time, by the time 2008 rolled around, there are almost no distributions, percentage of market share wise, that are based on Debian and not based on Ubuntu. Look at that. The difference is like 2 to 3% between Ubuntu and Debian. That is extreme. I mean, it's gone to the point where Debian was I mean, look at that. Look at that back in 2005, 2003. 2003, you're looking at 33 to 34% of all distributions were based on Debian or were Debian.
Yeah.
And now,
wow.
And now it's more near 45%, but say 43% of them are all Ubuntu based. That's kind of interesting. So Fedora keeps going down, Debian and Ubuntu keep going up, but look at OpenSUSE, 10%.
I know.
It's 10% in 2003. In 2004,
the red
it goes
line on the
up
chart
a little
here.
bit. It actually goes up a little bit around the time of 2006, which what was happening in 2006? Novell and Sled. Boom, back down to around 10%. It stayed pretty consistent. You could say it's gone up a little, gone down a little bit. It's been right about 10% of the market share for the last 7 years.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you even pull that off? Like, I don't even know. It seems like because that means
base.
Because I don't know if
you're
it's
not
just
gaining more than you're
base.
losing.
You're not gaining more than you're losing, but if you were stagnant, you'd be dropping off. Because look at all the other distros we took a look at already.
Well, in 2006, you have
plummeted.
In 2006, are you sure 2006 when the Novell deal was? It wasn't 07? I'm not positive, but
there's Sled was around 2006.
Oh, okay. There's something that happened in 06 that OpenSUSE goes down, and it never quite recovers.
Is 06 when SUSE became kind of OpenSUSE and
did the whole change
and
up?
they did a whole change up and then Sled. It was either 2005 or 2006 that
I think
happened.
It must be 2006. So that whatever that was obviously did not resonate well with people, and they lost, and they've just never quite come back.
Right.
That's kind of a bummer, dude.
It is kind of sad, isn't it?
We got one last chart. Do you want to talk about this one?
Yeah, I want to talk about this next one. So when you look at that last chart we were looking at though, that does you're okay. You can stay on this one.
All right.
That kind of tells you, things are really moving towards Debian-based distributions, specifically Ubuntu-based distributions.
Not Migo.
Not Migo. No.
Yeah.
No. Migo is based on Fedora.
Yeah.
No, actually, no. Everything is
trending
away from Fedora towards.
I find this interesting because Fedora has one of now OpenSUSE is hitting this in a big way, but Fedora has one of the easiest ways to make a respin of a Fedora distro and make your own distro.
It's true.
It includes all of the tools to do that.
Yeah.
I find it interesting to see more people using Debian based when it would technically be easy. Well, there's a tool for Ubuntu too, right?
There's several tools for Ubuntu for respinning it, but they're not as good. I mean, they're good. They're good. They're good. They're great.
Fedora really
I've
spent
used a bit
some
of it
time
myself.
on this.
But yeah, Fedora really committed to their whole respin thing. But yeah, it is kind of amazing that hasn't really taken off.
So transversely, since Ubuntu is GNOME based, now you're seeing the percentage of GNOME usage go up, right?
So let's look at desktop environments.
Yeah.
Back in 2003, 60% of all of the Linux desktops, of all the popular Linux desktops, was KDE. I mean, and that's not like 60% of the desktops. That's 60% of the market share.
This chart directly reflects my usage.
Yes, mine too.
I was, Mandriva or Mandrake, KDE.
Yes.
Through and through, thought GNOME was archaic, thought GNOME was basic, did not like it at all. KDE was the powerhouse. And, because of Ubuntu and finally a distro did a good version of GNOME.
And then it was great.
And then I couldn't really go back to KDE.
And then GNOME has continued to polish, and it's just kept that market share.
Yeah.
Now, just to be clear about where these numbers, excuse my burping.
Good job, buddy.
Where these numbers come from.
Brought to you by Coca-Cola.
These numbers are based on that previous chart, that previous set of charts where we have all those distros lined out. I kind of went through and said, okay, what is the default desktop environment for all these distros?
Right.
Added those together.
Kubuntu in your numbers.
I had Kubuntu in my numbers. Those go to KDE instead of GNOME, obviously. Now, a few of the distros were kind of harder to kind of suss out, like OpenSUSE. OpenSUSE is kind of a split distro where it is more of a GNOME distro.
A multi-headed beast, sir.
But it's more of like a 60% GNOME, 40% KDE. So I kind of tried to take that into consideration when I put these together.
So best effort.
Yeah, this is a best effort. It's probably going to be, say 5% off one way or the other, but the differences are so extreme, it still holds. So it was 40% GNOME, 60% KDE in 2003, and the quote unquote other desktop environments, the Fluxbox and the LXFC and all the other things, about 1 to 2, maybe 3% back in 2003. Zoom all the way forward to 2005. Look at 2005. All of a sudden in 2005, right about when Ubuntu comes out, GNOME surpasses KDE by just a smidge.
Right, you can see the intersect almost right. That does intersect almost exactly with Ubuntu's rise.
It is. Everything is around Ubuntu's rise. It's 2005 was the year that everything changed in Linux. Now, margin of error, it could be that at that point KDE was still above GNOME, depending on the numbers. But it's at that point that's when they were crossing.
There started to be a transition.
And then within 1 year, 2006, boom, no doubt, they've almost exactly switched spots. And since then, KDE has gone down every year since 2004.
And KDE
it's
has
never
been
gone
getting
up.
better every year.
Yes,
that's what's crazy.
KDE 4.4 is brand new and out, and it's awesome. KDE 4.3 was really great too.
4.0.
4.0 was a problem.
But a lot of people like Mike Linux in our chat room was just stuck with KDE 3 for a very long time.
A long time. And I can't blame him. I mean, if you look at like Linus Torvalds, he stuck with KDE 3, couldn't take KDE 4, and eventually ditched it for GNOME.
There you have it.
And that represents the average Linux user. So now we're at 60% GNOME, less than 30% KDE, and now for the first time, over 10% other. In fact, if this trend keeps up in about 2 to 3 years, other Linux desktop environments will overtake KDE.
Well, do you suppose...
And that is messed up feeling to me because KDE is KDE. That
Counter
was the
proposal,
thing.
sir. I would say, is it possible in, say, 2013 that other desktops will be... Oh, Mike is still on KDE 3.0. Okay.
Yeah.
So I would say it's possible in 2013 that maybe the other desktops will go away.
It's possible.
Because what do you need Fluxbox for? And what do you need XFCE for?
Well, see, now
you need it for slower machines.
You need it for slower machines, but those are going away.
Machines might be so powerful.
Well, no. Here's the other flip side of that.
In the future,
you
guys,
could consider those other desktop environments as being a lot of the custom ones for handheld devices. So in that particular,
could go up. It's gonna go up.
In that particular case, I would count things like the Android user environment, things like that, as alternatives to GNOME or KDE.
Word.
Now the crazy thing is, here we are in 2010. GNOME is on top by
a lot.
34 percentage points. I mean, huge margins, like almost megala margins. I just said all sorts of words there. And back in 2003, though, Red Hat and KDE and Mandriva. That was it. That was Linux. Now, here's the thing. Now that we're at this point, back then in 2003, when you said, let's install Linux, most people thought Red Hat.
Totally.
I mean, that was it. They were the mind share. Everything was Red Hat. Everything was Red Hat. Everything was KDE.
Totally.
All Linux magazines had screenshots of KDE at the time. There was no GNOME. There was no anything else. I mean, occasionally, but it was all Red Hat, KDE, and sometimes Mandrake or Mandriva.
And sometimes Mandrake too.
Yeah.
Yep, I'm with you. It's an interesting
and now
transition.
It's completely changed. When people think Linux now, they're thinking Ubuntu and they're thinking GNOME. That looks like what they expect Linux to look like now. And I think that's really interesting where and it doesn't seem to be changing. It's going in that direction even more than it was before. So it just seems like we're consolidating around.
So that's where your theory of unification comes from.
With GNOME, and whether we like it or not.
That's what's happening.
I know a lot of people that hate that idea. I've gotten a lot of feedback from people that was like, you know what, you're right. That does look like what's exactly happening, but I really am a KDE guy.
I hear you.
But it just seems like what's happening.
You know what? We're gonna get into that, sir, is a case that I believe I cannot argue, but some people out there might. And
I want your feedback on this one.
I meant to tell everybody at the top of the segment, so we want to hear your feedback. So why don't we cover how you can get a hold of us? If you head over to jupiterbroadcasting.com, at the very top of Jupiter Broadcasting, there's some links at the very, 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 very top of the page. One of those links is a contact us link. And if you click that, you will get the contact us page with all the contact information, including our phone number, where you can leave us a voicemail. How fun are voicemails? Well, voicemails are a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So you can call us. This is +1 because we're in the U.S. at 425-533-2217 and leave us voicemail. Now that we're going weekly, We want to get people's feedback in the show.
I love feedback.
We got voicemails. We want some more, so we want to get.
Give us more.
We need more because we're going weekly, so we need more content.
So all this week, you're sitting around at work, you're thinking about Linux while you're using your little Windows XP Service Pack 3 desktop. Just pick up the phone. Give us a little ringy dingy, do a little +1, boom.
Yep. And we know that some of you are international and you don't want to call long distance. If you have like some funky plan that doesn't do long distance, you can Skype us at Linux Action Show. And then you can always follow us on Twitter and hit us up on Twitter. I am twitter.com/ChrisLAS.
I'm Brian Lunduke.
And if you've got a show idea, I want to put a personal request out there. If you have an awesome, amazing thing that runs Linux, Twitter it to me at ChrisLAS with a #runsLinux.
Here's the problem Chris is having. We've done 102 episodes of this so far, and we've had a new runs Linux every episode.
Some of them aren't so awesome, guys. Although player piano,
that's great.
Awesome.
That's great. So the problem is though, we've kind of forgotten all the ones we've already done. And so when we're looking through stuff, we're like, dude, that's awesome. Oh, Paintball Robot Runs Linux. Wait a minute. Yeah, I think we actually did Paintball Robot Runs Linux twice.
Yep. So I could use
we
some
want to try and
Linux
avoid
suggestions.
that. Yeah. So if you're an avid fan and you think you've got a good handle on it, definitely send it into us.
Yeah, we would appreciate that. All right, why don't we move on to the Linux Mint review? Personally, I'll just say I'm a huge fan of Linux Mint distro. It's almost always my main distro. Almost always my go-to OS.
And as I'm sure everyone knows, you're welcome, Linux Mint, for providing you with great graphics.
That's true. That is a story.
That's a story right there.
That is a story.
Yeah. One of the main Linux Mint graphics designers was inspired to head over there because of the Linux Action Show. You're welcome.
Linux Mint is it's probably the biggest indie distro I can think of. When I think of a distro, I mean, Gentoo's in there.
Do you still have those charts up here? Let me pull this up right here. If you look at the pure numbers here of Linux Mint, Linux Mint is currently the #2 distribution, just ahead of Fedora. According to DistroWatch,
is bigger than Fedora.
Yes, Linux
according
Mint.
To DistroWatch.
According to DistroWatch,
I don't know, dude. There's a lot of hardcore Red Hat guys.
There's a lot of hardcore Red Hat guys, but honestly,
that's what the numbers show.
That's what the numbers show.
All right.
Yeah, so Linux Mint is really interesting. So now Linux Mint had release 8 a little while ago, not too long ago, but they've been kind of rolling it out. Linux Mint rolls out their main distro, and then what they have are the community-supported distros.
Yes,
so they roll out like the KDE version and the 64-bit KDE version and everything else, and you get all of that bit by bit.
Yeah, buddy.
So what I did is this last week, I took a look at Linux Mint 8 and Linux Mint 8, the KDE version. Now, the KDE version I'm not going to spend too much time on, and here's why. It's KDE 4.3. KDE 4.4 is out, so screw it. I deleted it. Now, it looked great. It was good quality. It had a good look and feel to it.
Wait, you saying it was 4.0 based?
It was 4.3 based.
Oh, and 4.4 is out.
4.4 is
Gotcha.
out. And 4.4 is a significant improvement over 4.3 in terms of KDE. So you know what? My hope is we'll do kind of more of an in-depth review of some distro based on KDE 4.4 soon. So I'm not going to worry about that right now. Let's just focus on the main Linux Mint GNOME-based
You
distro.
got it, sir.
All right. So let's see. We got the screenshot up here.
We do.
I want to look at the main wallpaper boot thing here.
You have your
here's the boot.
The Grub bootloader, right?
You know what? It's a very standard bootloader. The only real difference here is that it's got a really pretty green background.
Well, a nice green. Again, we've said this a lot of times on this show, but green. Whenever you make your bootloader match.
It makes a big difference.
Your actual load screen,
yeah.
And that's what we're showing right now.
You know, one of the first distros to really rock out and do that was Fedora Core 6. Fedora Core 6 did that great. That was
DNA at the
DNA
Grub
theme
screen.
right at the boot.
Always talking about the DNA theme.
Well, it was great.
I should look it up.
Fedora, bring up screenshots of Fedora Core 6 and the DNA theme there. It was fantastic. But so the thing that Linux Mint does nice in Linux Mint 8, and honestly, this is no change. Linux Mint 7 and 6 and 5 all did a great job at this, was having that unified look and feel from start to finish.
Right, unified makes it feel like a polished product.
Just,
it really does. It makes a big difference in my perception.
Oh yeah, bring up a screenshot of there.
We talk about this too much, but here's so for those of you watching the video version, here's the DNA theme for Fedora.
This is Fedora Core 6.
This is version 6.
Now this is the first version of Fedora full release that we got to review when the Linux Action Show first started. Probably about 37 years ago now. And it was great. It was phenomenal. I mean, look at that.
There's a log. You have the login screen. You have the desktop.
It's classy. It's smooth. It flows nicely. I mean, there's minor changes, but it feels so good. And the grub loader and everything fit together. and that was phenomenal. Now Fedora, of course, since then just looks more like Windows 2000. So who cares?
I don't know. They hit and miss it sometimes.
Well,
some of the more recent ones,
I'm
have been pretty
hopeful
good.
that the next Fedora is going to be rocking.
Yeah.
I'm trying not to look at the current Fedora just so that I can be like a fresh,
right,
clean,
you get a fresh,
objective point of view on it. But
now,
so back to Mint.
Now, there's not going on that what our conversation implies is that Mint is impeccably gorgeous. Now, one of the first things you get in the Mint screen though is this first pop-up "Welcome to Linux Mint."
Yes.
And I feel like this is underdone. It feels a little underdone to me. And Jeremy behind the camera,
you know the design.
First
of it,
impression is not super great. It's just kind of gray and bland.
I like the screen. I like the stuff that's on the screen. You know, it's got links to getting started. It's got your help links. It gives you a direct link to the chat room and release notes and everything else, which is great. I love having that window pop up at first launch.
Yeah.
But everything else looks so great that this screen just is underwhelming.
I'd rather have the screen than not have it.
Yeah, that's what I came to.
What is Linux Mint offering that you find exciting over Ubuntu?
Now, the big things in my mind that Linux Mint gives you over Ubuntu is more
polish,
more
little nice
dedication,
tweaks?
more dedication.
Did you download the one that has the codecs, or because you can download Linux Mint has a universal edition that has all of the codecs and everything like that, and they also have a version that is kind of all free.
I download the all free stuff.
Okay, see, I got the all codecs version. So I got codecs, I got Flash, drivers, I got all that stuff. So
it's good stuff.
Chris FTW. Right?
No. Yeah, it's that's great, and that's something that they offer that you don't get out of the box with, say, Ubuntu. Now, of course, this is just built on top of Ubuntu, but they
replace a few
more.
tools. They add a few utilities.
They changed the UI completely.
They changed one of the big things they changed is they add a new gnome menu system.
I don't like it.
I like it. I don't like it a lot, but I like it. I like it like I like the Windows 7 start menu.
Okay.
I like it in that it needs a few tweaks.
It's not terrible.
I like having first of all, one button instead of 3 buttons along the top menu bar. First of all, okay, back up. One menu bar, period. So I don't have 2 bars like I do in Ubuntu.
I agree. I like the way they're handling this much better. They just have one menu bar on the bottom. I mean, sure, it's more Windows-like in that regard, or more KDE-like, but it's good.
We first saw this menu in SLED, in SUSE's Linux Enterprise desktop.
Yeah.
That's the first time we saw this menu. Now we're seeing
it's changed a bit.
Mint picked up
quite a bit.
Changed it quite a bit, yeah. But I still think it's one of the best ways to get the core information you need. Right when you click on this menu, you have Synaptic Package Manager,
and it gives
you have
your
lock screen and log out.
your most commonly used applications.
I think it's a really efficient way to get to because the thing is, on my Linux desktop, I've got so many apps, I've got so many tools.
You know, my problem with it is really, I don't mind the usability of it. I don't like the look and feel of that menu. I feel like it detracts from the general design aesthetics of Linux.
You think it almost needs to have some maybe translucency to it or something?
It's gray.
It's this big gray object.
Gray thing.
It's a big gray.
Why is it gray? Linux Mint is green and dark.
It's got a green border
and gorgeous.
It's got green highlights. Green icons.
Come on, gray. It looks like a gray slab of gray
but
slabbiness.
All right,
I don't like that.
But at least it does. It is very flat.
Jeremy,
it does not feel.
It feels flat.
It does not like. You almost need to have.
It looks old.
Like the left-hand side has the computer, the home location software manager. It almost needs to have a different like almost needs to feel like it's indented or something. I don't know. It feels very Windows 95-y.
Yeah,
but
it does.
The functionality is
good. The functionality is good. I think it just needs to be improved a little bit on look and feel, but I like it. All right, move to the next shot here.
All right, so this next shot is one that you can do this in Ubuntu now too, but Linux Mint makes it even easier, and they have these .mint packages.
Yep.
And they're kind of like the PBIs, right, from a PCBSD?
Okay, not really.
They're not self-contained, but they're
more like
they're self-contained instructions on how to add the files.
Right.
So they auto.
So basically, it's an auto app sort of thing. It's similar to the one-click install for SUSE and SLED. All these things are great, but really, Linux Mint was the first one that really did it and made a big deal about it.
Well, it makes installing software crazy easy,
yeah.
and
then
their
website has a great list of stuff there, and that's what really makes it is their website and how it's easy to navigate and easy to find those additional apps to.
They have a software portal where you can browse the software catalog right on their site, and then you say you want something like Google Earth, like we showed in a screenshot. You want Google Earth, you just click it, and it downloads and installs. You don't have to worry about adding to your app repo. You don't have to search it in Synaptic. And really, it is easier to find this kind of stuff in a web base. And Synaptic is great, But when I'm sitting there trying to browse new software that I might find interesting and fun to use, I do not get that experience from
No,
Synapse.
it's not great. And and even on the Ubuntu side of things, they've got their their application center thing now.
Yeah,
And that's made it a lot better. But there's still
and OpenSUSE has their. Well, we can
Yes.
get. We're
We'll
gonna
get
talk
into
about that later.
OpenSUSE because OpenSUSE is coming up. But I'm really liking what they've done here. Now, Linux Mint 8 is not a phenomenal
Here's one problem.
big difference.
If you go to
from
their
the old
software
ones.
portal, your first question is what version of Linux Mint
And it's
you're
just
running.
code names.
I don't know the code names. I know Linux Mint 8. And I know I should know the code names. I realize that. I appreciate that, but I don't.
Yeah.
Do I have diarrhea down here? DARYDNA? Diarrhea? Do I have Darnaria because I have 94 applications, or do I have Helena because I have 438 applications? I don't know which one I've got.
Oh. Okay, Linux Mint guys, before you pick another code name, run it by us first to see if we can make fun of it by calling it diarrhea or darnaria.
If I pick that top
Come
one,
on, guys.
If I pick that top one, I get my best rated software,
no, it's
Open Arena
phenomenal.
right here. I mean,
Boom.
it's really cool. If, you know what? I do want Open Arena. I didn't know I wanted Open Arena, but then I saw the picture and I click with one freaking button.
Boom.
I can
It
install
installs.
right.
Yeah, right there. Boom.
I love that.
It's phenomenal. So, now, I mean, it's not the only player in town that does this, but the fact that it does it and really stock Ubuntu doesn't.
Right.
So this is kind of nice.
Now Ubuntu's working on us. Well, we'll get into that later.
Yeah,
That's
we got stuff to talk about with Ubuntu.
We got a lot to talk about.
But this is really what's nice. And when you look at here, hold on, let me bring up DistroWatch's current numbers here because this is intriguing to me.
All right.
DistroWatch.
I mean, I think what you're getting at is you're impressed that, in my opinion, a semi
all right. Well,
but valuable
today,
really
as of right now, Linux Mint is at number 3, just
position.
a smidge behind Fedora, ahead of OpenSUSE and Mandriva and Debian and Puppy and PC and Slackware and Mepis and Cent and all of them.
But like you said, again, this data is not 100%. You can't go off this data a lot.
You can't, but come on, that gives you such a distinct thing. I mean, obviously, we know Ubuntu's the number one. Everyone knows that. People are running Ubuntu. It's just what's happening. And DistroWatch's numbers seem to reflect the difference between Ubuntu and Fedora fairly accurately.
Yeah.
I mean, Fedora is still obviously rocking. They've got a huge base, but they're obviously significantly behind. Now, if the same reasonable statistics hold true for the rest of the distros, Linux Mint, they've come out of nowhere to become a huge player. I mean, a huge player.
Yeah, I hear you.
It's
impressive. And you know what? You know why they're doing it? Because they have a good product, dude. That's why.
They've done a great job. And you know what? It's all look and feel based. I mean, extra drivers are great. Extra codecs, installing Flash out of the gate. Those are all great. But honestly, it's the look and feel that does it. Because currently...
What is the number right there? Go ahead. Finish. Say what you're saying.
So currently, I mean, you've got... I forgot what I was saying now.
Sorry, dude.
You distracted me. You guys distracted me. Everybody. But so it's the look and the feel that does it.
All right. Well, I agree. I'm very impressed. I downloaded Linux Mint and I put it on an HP laptop and it ran fantastically. All of the stuff worked out of the box. I thought I'd have something to come on here and say,
yeah,
oh, this doesn't work. The only thing that didn't work because I didn't even bother playing with it out of the box was the fingerprint reader. And if I maybe would have messed with it, I probably could have.
I didn't even try the fingerprint reader. But it's doing great. It is the best looking Linux distribution there is currently.
Nice.
And
I agree.
That says something. Now,
I think OpenSUSE is looking pretty good these days.
Now, OpenSUSE is looking pretty good, but it's looking better than Ubuntu.
Ubuntu's got a new artworge theme coming out.
It's coming, but you know what? Here's the thing: is what's here right now, and you're big on what's here right now, not what's coming, right?
It's true.
Come on.
Well, because it's all about what can I get
Mint
today.
is here, and Linux Mint has been consistently the best looking distro on the planet for several years now, and that's hugely impressive.
I agree.
And it works fairly well.
It looks great.
And
it's got good performance.
I'm just going to say straight out, the people who do the artwork for Linux Mint, you should be absolutely high-fived. You're walking down the street. Let's say you're walking from here to your grocery store, and it's 10 blocks. If you don't get 10 high fives, one per block, the world is bad and wrong and evil. That's all I'm saying.
I would say
that's good stuff.
I think it's an interesting commentary on our review that boot speed didn't come up. General performance didn't come up. Like, those things have been accomplished now, and they're almost not even worth bringing up in a review, I guess, in my opinion. Like, I didn't even think about it.
Yeah.
It's like it booted fast. It booted fast.
Honestly, if Canonical
works,
and
all that kind of stuff
if
that we used to
Ubuntu and
cover.
Fedora come out with yet another distro, another release, and they put at the top of their things, boots 2 seconds faster, I'm gonna punch somebody. I'm gonna punch you in the face.
You know what?
Face punch.
All the
I think
time
it's
you're
great,
working
but who
on getting
cares?
boot fast. Go ahead and stop now. Hit the pause button.
You're gone. You're good.
Maybe focus on sleep.
Call it for a little bit.
Sleep worked for me on this HP, but it doesn't work for everybody.
Actually, you know what? On my laptop, Linux Mint, close the lid, sleep, hibernate, popped it back
What
open.
a novel idea.
Worked great. 3D acceleration Compass still worked great. Wi-Fi kicked back in. No problems. Now, granted, I didn't do the crazy close it open and close it open and close it open type of test, but I don't need to do that. So, I'm honestly, I'm probably pretty sure that would have freaked it the F out and it would have exploded.
Hey, Brian.
But it's still, who needs to do that?
Brian, good job.
Thanks, man.
Good job.
I really appreciate that
All
sort
right,
of support.
well, that wraps up our look at the possible involuntary
Oh,
unification
by the way,
of Linux and LinuxMint.
LinuxMint.com.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, that's
In
their
case
web.
you didn't know.
Yeah,
LinuxMint.com.
that's their thing right there.
All right, well, I think we'll wrap up this segment with that.
All right, I believe that brings us to the end of this week's broadcast of the Linux Action Show. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. We've had a nice time with you.
We've had a nice chat with you all today.
Now, we got a lot of stuff coming up. We had things we wanted to talk about in this show. We just didn't have time.
True.
Hey,
wait, before you say that, I want to plug the store and make people wait.
You want to plug the store before
we
that?
talk about what's coming up on the next episode.
All right.
Let's tease it a little bit. We've got.
I would like everyone to know that I wanted to give you information right up front. Chris said no.
Chuck, talk about the store you're so proud of. Talk about your new
we
store.
got a new store. If you head over to store.jupiterbroadcasting.com, that's our new Jupiter Broadcasting store. We've had, we had at one point in the past a swag store where you could buy T-shirts and stuff. And then we let it lapse and we're lazy. And now we've got it back. So now you can head over there. You can get Linux Action Show T-shirts and shirts and the like. And
or just generally geeky stuff.
And we've decided to include, we've got a couple of Star Trek and Star Wars shirts in there now, too. In case you, we got there's a Tauntauns Are Retarded shirt. That's a good shirt, right? A little, if you don't like J.J. Abrams, we've got a shirt for you. Just general Jupiter Broadcasting stuff. If you like, all the good stuff we got, stuff that we talk about on the show, we're going to try and link to here. So you have a kind of a common place to buy Linux games, comic books.
It's all an
gear,
Amazon affiliate. We just
we
get a percentage, but it doesn't cost you anymore. So
we really don't earn much of anything on it, but it gives you a nice, simple place to grab it at, and every couple of pennies helps the Jupiter Broadcasting cost.
You bet. And what we'll be doing is we'll be putting all of the gear we use to make these shows in that store.
Yeah, we'll stick
all
all
right,
that
go
up
ahead.
there,
Sorry, I
too.
didn't mean to interrupt.
So next week in the Linux Action Show, we're going to be covering the new Ubuntu One music store that came out just about 3 days ago. They released the current alpha of Ubuntu with the new music store. However, you can't use it yet unless you have like a certain special handshake password, and we don't have that yet. So Canonical. Oh, what's this in my throat? That's a Canonical thing I was trying to clear out. Canonical, give me an email, and we'll make sure we get that gone over. There's also a really cool application called Webcam Studio. That's a Linux-based webcams package, and it's come a long way just recently.
It sounds familiar, but I'm not familiar with it.
We looked at it a long time ago, or a little while back, for doing
Is this the same thing that's on the Mac? Or on Windows? This is a different program?
No, it's a totally different thing. Webcam Studio for Linux.
All right. Well, go ahead.
Anyway, so
we're gonna cover that next week.
So we're going to be covering this next week. We'll give everyone a quick review of the current checked out of the repository source control built ourself version. So cutting edge. Am I right, Chris?
Yeah, buddy.
So it looks pretty cool. So if you want to do your own kind of, streaming live on the internet, pretending you're important thing, like Chris sometimes does, that will be a great one to tune in for as well.
Yeah. Very cool. Well, I'll be looking forward to that. And that, of course, comes out every Sunday at JupiterBroadcasting.com.
Well, how fancy is that? Now, of course, head on over to JupiterColony.com for the forum.
That's where we love to get your feedback. Share it with the community if you've got ideas, show suggestions, Android picks, all over at JupiterColony.com in the Linux Action Show section.
Just too fancy for words.
All right, everybody. Well, I think
gosh.
That wraps up this episode of the Linux Action Show. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we're back next week.
See you later, everybody.